So it looks like we may have some more updates when it comes to this case with David, the singer, and Celeste Rivas. Celeste Rivas, her body was unfortunately found dismembered and, according to TMZ, partially frozen in the trunk or the hood of David's Tesla. Now, the investigation has moved along very slowly, surprisingly, and we haven't seen much come out. The medical examiner is still confused on the cause of death, and we don't have a cause of death yet, but the LAPD did officially recently rule this as a homicide. Now, according to TMZ, it's looking like they're going to make an arrest soon in this investigation. Let's check it out and see what they have to say.
There's a grand jury that is being held right now. So we found out the guy who is the general manager of his record label and head of his tour company testified for the grand jury.
Yes, Robert Morgenroth, general manager of Mogul Vision and president of Zara Brothers Travel, revealed something very interesting.
So when he came out of the grand jury, he was talking to his lawyer in the hallway. There was about a half dozen people around, and he was speaking loudly enough to be heard.
And Robert told his lawyer that the deputy DA grilled him about not calling the police.
He said to his lawyer, I said, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue the tour. We don't know the time frame, but remember, David was on tour when Celeste's body was found.
But what were they?
Well, that's the thing about it. Even though David was on tour when the body was found, that still doesn't mean he didn't have something to do with either her dismemberment or hiding or disposing of the body as well, because we know there's been evidence shown that David took a trip out into the desert for some reason, or we won't say David, allegedly someone who was in the vehicle took a trip out to the desert well before David was on tour and then came back in the Tesla. So now we're going to have to see how that plays out and if it implicates David in some way.
Talking about
it could be the dismembered body. It could be the circumstances of her death. It could be a cover-up. It could be that she was a minor. Whatever the DA was going for, it was evidence of a crime, because otherwise you don't call the police.
Seems unlikely given his comment, I didn't feel like I had the responsibility to do that, is not about a dismembered body in the back of a car. Everybody would think they had the responsibility to call the police about that.
But the second part of it is, and just wanted to continue with the tour.
Yeah.
So it's something that would have altered the tour.
But it is interesting that after they found the body, he continued with the tour.
Yeah, so he didn't think he was involved.
He wasn't acting in any way, defensive.
And although we still don't know the exact details,
we do know something here. Clearly, he told the grand jury what it is he knew that he didn't call police about.
And he also knew it was something somewhat serious because he said, I just wanted to continue the tour.
whatever the case, David still remains a suspect.
Okay, so now we're going to get into a more in-depth, detailed description from Harvey of what they're finding, what they're seeing, and how this could implicate David.
There is someone who is about to get arrested in the case
dang.
involving the death of Celeste Rivas, and it is not David.
Wow.
We know a lot. Let me download you on what we found out. So this week, there has been a witness before the grand jury, and he is intimately involved in David's life, the singer David, who the LAPD and the LA County DA says is a suspect in what they believe is the murder of Celeste Rivas. His name is Robert Morgenroth. Robert Morgenroth is the head of Mogul Vision, which is the label for David. But more than just the executive, the general manager, he is a manager. He manages David, and he is involved in David's day-to-day life and clearly knows a lot. So on Monday, Morgenroth was in the hallway with his lawyer, and there were people around, and they weren't sitting or standing right next to them, but the hallway echoes, and it was clear to people around there that there was a conversation that Morgenroth was having with his lawyer, and he was recounting what happened inside the grand jury room with the prosecutor in the case. The prosecutor, Beth Silverman, according to Morgenroth, here's what he said. She was very pushy on why I didn't call police. And then he went on to say that he said, in response to that, he said, quote, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour.
Yeah, so Celeste, they probably, are saying that Celeste, they felt like she was a groupie. If I had to guess, there's something here that says, okay, you noticed Celeste wasn't around. You didn't realize that David hadn't been with Celeste for an extended period of time, and she usually was. Why didn't you call the police? That seems like a question that would be something you'd ask of a manager who knew Celeste was in the area, knew she was usually around, and didn't see her for an extended period of time.
Now, we do not know the context of this, but when the DA is grilling him about not calling the police, that has to involve a crime. You're not going to call the police because somebody didn't show up for work. You're going to call the police if there's some kind of crime involved, especially since this is a case involving what the DA says is a crime. So we don't know that would require him, according to the DA, to pick up a telephone and call the police. But there's something.
I somewhat disagree.
Again, he was involved in David's day-to-day life. So, okay, there is more. There is another manager in this same company, and his name is Josh Marshall. That name may be familiar to you because Josh Marshall was the guy who leased the house in the Hollywood Hills that David was staying at.
Yep.
It is the same house that the LAPD raided pursuant to a search warrant just shortly after Celeste's body was found inside David's Tesla. We are told by law enforcement sources that that house and that search was really critical in their investigation. So Josh Marshall, who leased the house, who signed the lease, is part of the company Mogul Vision that Morgan Roth is also involved with. Morgan Roth and Josh Marshall are both managers of David. So they seem to know a lot about David. I don't know, we don't know, if Josh Marshall was called as a witness.
Wow.
I would frankly be very surprised if he wasn't. But Morgan Roth testified for at least 3 days. We don't know if he was testifying last week as well. One other interesting thing happened on Tuesday. Morgan Roth went into a courtroom that is next to where the grand jury was hearing the testimony. And along with Morgan Roth, the DA, Beth Silverman, also walked in. Now that's important because when there's something that happens in the grand jury where there's a dispute, for example, if a witness won't answer a question and the DA is pressing for an answer, if there's a stalemate, the DA can go to the judge and force the witness to testify, or at least get the judge to do that. We don't know if that's why they walked in, but both Morgan Roth and Beth Silverman walked into that courtroom, and when they did, we have a reporter who was down there who was in the courtroom, and the judge. So something was going on about what was happening in the grand jury room, and it may well be there was some dispute over what Morgan Roth would or would not say. But again, we don't know what that is. Now let's go to Wednesday, because this gets even more interesting. So I told you that Beth Silverman is the DA. Morgan Roth's lawyer is a woman by the name of Evan Janess. So
who is that?
This is after the conversation on Monday. On Wednesday, Beth Silverman, the prosecutor, walks out into the hallway and starts talking to attorney Evan Janess. That Beth Silverman was very frustrated and said that she would have a judge issue a body attachment to a female witness that was supposed to appear before the grand jury, a witness whom Janess represents. Remember, Janess also represents Morgan Roth. So apparently this witness didn't show up, and Beth Silverman seemed frustrated, according to the people there, and said to Janess, I'm going to have a body attachment placed on this woman, and we're going to have her taken to court. That's an arrest, taken to court to appear before the grand jury. So we don't know if that woman also has a connection to Morgan Roth, who is again represented by Evan Janess. So there are a lot of connections here. Connections between Josh Marshall and Morgan Roth, both of whom were really intimately involved in David's day-to-day life. And then you have this female witness who may be involved with Morgan Roth as well, because the same lawyer represents both of them. And you've got a situation where it sounds like not everybody is being fully cooperative with the prosecutor, who seems to be getting increasingly frustrated as the grand jury plows along.
Interesting, because you think about it in this case, I think TMZ might be reaching a little bit on this, but I'm not going to doubt their sources because they usually do a pretty good job. But when I hear a district attorney ask a question like, well, why didn't you call the police if you knew such and such? My instant thought was, you're asking that because this person noticed someone was missing or wasn't there. Maybe someone was actually acting strange. They saw something that maybe wasn't normal or a part of the normal course of how that person would behave. And then you say, well, why didn't you call the police if you thought she was missing, or if you knew she was missing, or if you heard she was missing? Why didn't you notify the police, especially with her being a minor? Or is it was because she was a minor and then this person knew that she was a minor and David was involved with her, and they say, why didn't you call the police then? So again, interesting stuff. Y'all will have to let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat. Who do you think might be arrested first? Will it be David? Will it be his brother? One of these managers? Crazy, wild stuff.